Little did I know what was actually to come. It was almost like my feelings were not connected to other people, but it really pushed me that far to quit. Stimulants were being administered to young children between the ages of 5 and 11. Produces a frequency on your right ear different from your left ear. Are you a student, creative entrepreneur, overtime worker, or just require a lot of logic and imagination to execute a very important endeavor in your life? I personally understand how difficult it is to cram a lot of information in your brain for school, to make sure that I can retain and recite a lot of information on days where I'm just so exhausted and tired, and even just to write a script for my YouTube channel, to utilize the left side of my brain as well as the right side of my brain.
What is up with this idea of people being left-brained and right-brained? Is it a myth? Actually, no. The thing is, some people are more left-brained and others are more right-brained. We found out that what determines which side has dominance happens before we're even born. In the womb, when our spines develop, the way they wire up to our developing brains determines which side is dominant.
If you're like me, on most days, I would love to feel wide awake, inspired, and to be able to just process information quickly and efficiently. So I have to start by telling you a story. Several years ago, I fell into the trap of taking Adderall for school. Adderall, if you may already know, is similar to Ritalin, as well as Focalin. So let me first by explaining, if you're thinking about starting Adderall, or if you know someone who's taking Adderall, for the purposes as I had previously mentioned, make sure you like this video so that this information can get out to the public. Then after I talk to you about my personal experience, I want to show you some very astounding statistics on the trend of Adderall in the United States and what we're resorting to now, since Adderall is not as readily available on the market. So how easy was it for me to get Adderall? It was in fact very easy. All I had to do was just walk into my primary care provider's office, take an examination like the one that I'm showing you here, answer all of the questions to prove that I had symptoms similar to attention deficit disorder. And if you answer these questions primarily in the gray boxes, you're more likely to get your prescription. And did I have ADHD or ADD at a young age? No, I don't think so. But at the time, I really felt like I had these symptoms. I was stressed the hell out from school. I was working such a stressful career, and I was trying to manage home life. I felt I needed help. And from the people I heard around that time, they said Adderall helped. It was going to help me get through one of my most difficult programs in school. Little did I know what was actually to come. So when I first started Adderall, it was such a great feeling. It helped me focus and study for hours and hours. I was writing and reading. I didn't even have to take a bathroom break that often. And my appetite was suppressed, so I wasn't eating as often. Everything that I was reading and writing was so interesting. But in reality, if I had studied it on my spare time, I don't think I would have been just as interested. I started it at the lowest dose, like many of us do. And then because it wears off after a few hours, that's the short release medication, because there's also an extended release medication. I was taking the short release medication. And as you become dependent on it, you see how effective the medication is to help you stay focused and to stay interested. So I gradually began to take more and more. I truly felt that my energy was at its prime. My narrowed focus was at its prime. Yes, I felt like I was limitless. But as time went on, just 2 weeks before my final examination that semester, I decided that I was going to quit. To just want to quit 2 weeks before my final exam, knowing that my hormones were probably all jacked up.
They are stimulants, similar to cocaine, similar to caffeine. And so when you are on a drug that's a constant stimulant, it's going to increase the activity of certain organ systems, which over time can be an issue. There are going to be side effects. And it's important to remember, you cannot take a synthetic chemical for long term without there being some sort of side effect.
But it really pushed me that far to quit 2 weeks before my final exam. And they say that the most challenging times leads to personal growth. It gives you a sense of resilience and a deeper appreciation for your life before what had happened. And looking back, I could say that it made my character much stronger, knowing that at such a crucial time in my life, and as addicted I felt I was to Adderall or reliant on it, I gave it up. Let me just list all of the reasons why I stopped taking Adderall. I really just want to share my story so that those who want to focus and be more creative can potentially find an alternative, a healthier alternative, which I will list after I list my reasons for stopping Adderall. So during my use of Adderall, my sleep quality drastically diminished. I had to start relying on sleep medications like melatonin to help me stay asleep or to fall asleep. At that time, I was only getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep per night. I would wake up the next morning feeling really groggy and tired. My mind would be my mind would be foggy. And because of the fogginess and the lack of sleep, what do you think that resulted to? It resulted to me taking Adderall to stay awake and to narrow my focus in my studies, as well as go to work, take care of the house. And when you're taking Adderall, they recommend for you not to drink coffee. And at some point, I had to drink coffee even after maybe 2 hours of taking the medication. And the reason why they don't recommend it is because coffee is a stimulant. It can increase your heart rate and your blood pressure, and Adderall can also do the same. So the amount of stress on your heart, they highly do not recommend coffee alongside Adderall. So all in all, me taking Adderall was counterproductive because I wasn't getting the sleep that I should have been getting. And sleep is so important for gaining memory, making sure our cognitive function is working at its peak. It helps regulate mood and reduce your stress level. And getting enough sleep also helps you prevent anxiety and depression. So lack of sleep, reliance on Adderall, my brain had become so much more disorganized. I also felt like I was feeling less, and I was also talking less when I would go out to socialize with my peers and my family. It was almost like my feelings were not connected to other people. I was blunted in a sense. My opinions diminished. And they say this is a side effect of taking Adderall, in which that you can feel zoned out. It might just because I wasn't getting the quality sleep that I needed. I guess the rush of all of these feel-good hormones makes you desensitized a bit. I started to have mood swings and panic attacks. I've been a nurse for a very long time. I just remember one day coming home from work, I was feeling anxious about a patient I had taken care of. I found myself going to the bathtub, starting up a bath, nice hot bath because I needed to fully relax. And I couldn't rationalize the feelings that I had inside of me. So I ended up calling a girlfriend, which made me eventually cry and tear up. And I was almost hysterical. While I'm sitting in the bathtub, I'm looking at myself from a third person's perspective, and I'm witnessing a part of me that I had never seen before. And at that point, I thought, okay, there must be something totally wrong. I'm acting out of character. I also noticed that my heart rate started to increase more. Perhaps it was from the anxiety that I had from the mood swings and the panic attack, or just not being able to self-regulate my emotions. Or it could have been just from the medication itself, because what I had said was that it increases your heart rate and your blood pressure, and that was the reason why you couldn't drink coffee. And at the time, I did research on Adderall and the effects of the heart. I knew that long-time users, it could one day cause heart failure. And the type of heart failure that it can cause is called cardiomyopathy. Now, cardiomyopathy is a weakening of the muscles that surround or that is the heart, because your entire heart is a muscle. And with a weak muscle, your heart does not function to its full extent. But it didn't scare me enough until I quit 3 months later. Just to reinforce my findings about cardiomyopathy, a recent study with the American College of Cardiology, they found that people that were taking Adderall and Ritalin at a 1-year mark were at a 17% increase of getting cardiomyopathy. And then those who were studied after 8 years had a 57% of getting cardiomyopathy. Now you may wonder why. Is the anxiety, the mood swings, the increased heart rate, and the increase in blood pressure? That is a lot of stress on your heart, which can eventually lead to heart failure.
What happens when the cardiac muscle gets either too thin, too hard, or even just really big and thick? All leading to a weaker pump, meaning low cardiac output, aka low oxygen to the body.
Now in these reports, they say that this occurrence is very rare, but it occurs in people who take it long term. And a person is more likely to take it long term because it is a highly addictive medication. And I evidently did not want it damaging my heart forever. And the final reason I quit is because even though this medication was to help me study, I found that I was not doing better on my exams. Rather, I was just more interested in studying longer hours. I could sit there and focus. I was more awake and more interested in what I was staring at in my books. And during that time, when I was not using Adderall, all I could think about was using Adderall. Because when you start, that rush of dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine makes you feel so good. And this is the addictive part. The feel-good hormones only linger for as long as you keep taking the medication. As soon as you stop, those feel-good hormones go away, and then you'll end up feeling the mental strain and the physical strain. Then you just end up becoming committed till no end in sight. I was at a pretty low point. I had to reset my sleeping habits. I had to reset my emotional intelligence. I had to reset my social engagement, and I had to protect my heart health. I knew it was going to be difficult because, again, all of the feel-good hormones were going to drop and I was going to feel really crappy. And the common symptoms of quitting these stimulants include fatigue, depression, and very difficulty concentrating. And yes, I felt these symptoms tremendously the first day, the second day, the third day, the first week, but gradually I started to get better as my feel-good hormones were being replaced by my body naturally. So what did I do? I gradually came off the medication as recommended by most doctors so that you don't completely drop your hormonal levels. I ate a really clean diet of fruits, vegetables, and meats. I stayed away from sugar and processed foods and refined foods. I exercised a lot because exercising brings up your serotonin levels. Even though I was so tired, I had to push myself to do it. I meditated to recenter myself, and I relied on medicinal mushrooms to help the recovery of my brain cells, which I will tell you later about. So if you're thinking about quitting this medication, please consult your doctor. They can work out a schedule with you so that you can gradually taper off the medication. And make sure you tell your friends and your family so that they can monitor you, because during these times you may feel like you have really low mood, you may feel depressed, unmotivated, but these are the symptoms and you will get over it. So now let's go over some very alarming statistics. So according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, 17.8 million people used Adderall in the past year. Some adults take it for reasons like I had mentioned earlier to help with their overall motivation. And I know that some people take it because they have ADHD, truly diagnosed ADHD. And I know that children also take this medication at an early age to help them focus in school. And because a lot of parents cannot handle their children, they think that they're acting out or not focusing in areas of their life like they should, and then they become disruptive. So I get it. Some people, their lives would be worse off without Adderall. So at the beginning of the pandemic, in March of 2020, the amount of Adderall prescriptions actually declined for children. They estimated that it declined about 19% from 2017. But then after the pandemic, after March of 2020, the usage of Adderall and other stimulants increased. And then they resorted to prescribing Focalin, which is similar to Adderall. Now, Adderall has 4 ingredients of the amphetamine salt, while Focalin only has 1. So stimulants were being administered to young children between the ages of 5 and 11 following the COVID pandemic. So researchers weren't sure, was ADHD being misdiagnosed? Or perhaps my speculation is that maybe the forced isolations from the COVID pandemic had something to do with it. And as we can see here, research indicates that social isolation can contribute to or exacerbate to ADHD symptoms, as the two factors are often interconnected, with studies showing that children experiencing social isolation are more likely to exhibit ADHD symptoms, and vice versa. Essentially, a cycle where isolation can worsen ADHD symptoms and ADHD symptoms can lead to social isolation. Or my second speculation is maybe it had something to do with the poor American diet. As you can see here, foods high in sugar, refined flour, and artificial additives can worsen ADHD symptoms. These foods can cause sugar fluctuations that can make it difficult to focus and regulate energy. So I found this article back in 2018 depicting how many people were diagnosed with ADHD and how many of those people were actually using Adderall. As you can see here, for those between the ages of 3 and 18, the US market was the highest. Similar to the children, the US market was the highest also for the adults. And again here, you can compare the US to other nations or other countries. And the US was diagnosing and prescribing more Adderall than any other country. The scary thing is that if any of these people were experiencing the symptoms that I had felt, if they had not been using the medication for a true diagnosis of ADHD, research was showing that uncontrollable use of Adderall, the 40 milligram ranges, could lead to psychosis. You could start to have delusions, illusions, and just a loss of sense with reality. And if they were feeling the emotions that I had felt, not for 3 months, but they were taking the medication for year in and year out, I could understand why there would be a mental health crisis. And then these people who are on Adderall could potentially resort to other drugs like marijuana or excessive alcohol intake just to ease the feeling of anxiety or the mood swings. And then they're thinking, I'm going to go to my doctor to get help, to understand why I'm feeling this way. And then the psychiatrists or psychologists, they end up prescribing additional medication, anti-anxieties and antidepressants. So it would be a never-ending loop of treatment for mental instability from this medication. Now that I've discussed my horror story with Adderall and some statistics and research findings, let's finally go over some more healthier alternatives that I'm hoping that will influence you to get off the Adderall if you really don't need it, and just to give these healthier options a chance, because it may save you from heartache in the long run. So the first and second recommendation that I'm going to give you is going to tie with my third one. And the third recommendation I find to be one of the most important. Binaural beats. What are binaural beats? It is a type of music that when listened to with earbuds, it produces a frequency on your right ear different from your left ear. And by doing that, it synchronizes the right side of the brain, which is your imaginative side, with your left side, which is your more analytical side, and it helps the two hemispheres sync together so that they are working in tandem.
So by literally plugging in headphones and listening to like oscillating beats, you can change how your brain works. You can literally change your mood. You can even change your hormones. Yeah, you're probably about to click off this video because you're thinking that Thomas has finally lost his mind with some crazy woo-woo witch doctor stuff. No, I'm literally talking about neurons and the electrical pulses that they send to each other and how we can actually manipulate brain waves a little bit through something known as binaural beats.
Usually we have one side of the brain that is more dominant than the other, but can you believe it? You can listen to music that synchronizes the two so that they are working together. You'll have better logic, more imagination, more creativity. Your mind becomes much sharper. You're more focused and you have a more clear vision. And if you have a problem in your life, you can solve it at a much faster speed. It can also help you get in touch with your emotions and your intuition. So there are 4 brain waves that you can use or listen to help give you different outcomes. So if you want increased focus and attention, you should be listening to beta and gamma waves. For very deep meditation and clarity in your thoughts, listen to beta to help you reduce anxiety. Listen to alpha. And if you're trying to sleep faster, listen to delta, lion's mane mushroom. It's been used for centuries in the Chinese traditional medicine as well as in the Native American culture to help boost your mental capacity, to help improve your mental cognition. So there was a study with 2 groups of people between the ages of 50 and 80. One group took 250 milligrams of lion's mane, while another group took a placebo. What they noticed was that those who took the lion's mane scored higher in their cognitive test in comparison to those who did not take the lion's mane. However, after stopping the lion's mane, their cognitive test scores actually went down. So maybe you need a temporary boost in your mental cognition. Lion's mane is a not forever supplement, but it may just do the trick temporarily. If you're pressed to study in school or you have a project or a deadline coming up. But if you're interested, this is not FDA approved. You can go to the store and buy it over the counter, and you can run it by your doctor to see if it's right for you. So lastly, if you're having problems focusing, being creative, needing more energy, the one thing you should be doing is to control your diet. Reduce your sugary drink intake, reduce processed food intake, because the blood sugar crash, similar to the dopamine crash of when you stop using Adderall, can cause you to lose your attention, can cause you to have low energy. Artificial colors, don't give these to your children. I know RFK is working at banning these artificial dyes, but it's been strongly correlated to ADHD in children. Too much caffeine, it can increase your anxiety and make you more hyperactive and lessen your ability to focus. Foods high in mercury, such as some fishes like marlin, tuna fish, shark, swordfish, king mackerel, ahi tuna, big eye tuna, tilefish. These are the fishes with the highest levels of mercury. Mercury will accumulate in the brain and worsen ADHD symptoms. Well, I hope you enjoyed my presentation today. Take care and stay healthy, my friends of YouTube. Bye!